Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm here with a new car, the 2026 Kia K4 Hatchback GT Line Turbo. And we're going to go through this car in detail today and talk about all of its different features, take a look at the design, because this is a new car for 2026. And I want to mention some of the pros and cons of this new car, as well as, of course, talk about what it's like to drive and figure out if the 8-year hiatus we've had since Kia last sold a compact hatch in the US market is worth the wait for the new K4. And then with all that in mind, I'll talk about what my thoughts are on potentially buying one of these if I were in the market for a compact hatch. So with that all said, stick around for today's review of this new Kia K4 hatch and hope you enjoy. All right, so before we get started with driving the K4 hatchback, I want to talk a little bit about the design of this new vehicle, because vehicle design is something I'm very passionate about and always very interested to see what new features they're rolling out on a brand new model like this, which is new in the US for the 26 model year. So first of all, let's talk about this paint. Star Bright Yellow, it's fantastic. It is an extra $400 on the window sticker to get this color, which I think they first introduced in the Kia Seltos crossover, but it looks fantastic. I mean, let's please bring back vibrant colors in the passenger vehicle segment, because it looks so good and helps accentuate some of the other styling features that are prominent on the K4, which, for example, again, we're looking at the GT line trim of this car, which is the current top trim and the sportiest appearance package you can put on the car. So with that, you get these black wheels that have a pretty good design, but you know, being all black, they kind of just fade away from a distance and you can't really appreciate them as much. So that's a little bit of a downside that I wish was executed a little bit better from a design perspective. But with the GT line trim, you have all these black accents around the wheel well, the window trim, and the mirror caps you can see are black, as well as some components of the rocker panel down there that are black. And then, of course, coming around up front, large parts of the bumper and the splitter, as well as the grille, are all in black. But one thing about the front that I particularly like, in addition to just this entire design in general, is the lighting signature. You have the amber running lights that run horizontally here just under the hood before making their way vertically down to surround the headlights and these 6 LEDs that make up the fog lights. Overall, I think a very nice and well-executed design signature that they've brought in from really their whole lineup. Their crossovers are using this, as well as even the K5 sedan. So cool to see that here on the K4. Looks very nice. And moving along, the silhouette of the K4 from the side, I think, is its strongest angle, because you'll notice, of course, we have a traditional door handle here for the front doors. But as you make to the rear, there's nothing here. It's a clean sheet of metal, and this has a very nice body line here that sort of accentuates the rear fender and this hip as it makes its way through the rest of the hatch. And of course, you'll notice that the rear door handle is hidden there in the C-pillar black trim. So it really kind of disappears from a distance, combined with this floating roofline design that is popularized in many other crossovers for years now. This is nothing new, using this black trim along with the hidden door handle there, but it looks really nice in this application. I don't think you often see this in a hatchback or a traditional hatchback vehicle like the K4, but the effect of it is you have a car that kind of gives off a shooting brake kind of vibe, similar to what you would see from like a Ferrari FF or something way more expensive, because you have this clean design down the side, and other than, of course, the shut line here from where the door opens, it almost looks like you're looking at a 3-door coupe hatchback, which is, you know, something that gives off a very sporty appearance and stance. So I love that. I think it was a very smart thing for them to integrate it in that manner, and makes the design very cohesive from the side, and just gives it kind of a stance from a distance. You might not even realize that that door handle's there, and again, looks a lot more sporty. From the rear, hatch is very well executed. You can tell this is much more of an upright hatch design compared to something like the very swoopy Mazda3 Hatchback, or the Civic Hatchback today is really more of like a notchback with a very steep angle at the rear window. But this is much more upright. Of course, you have this big spoiler piece here fixed over the rear window, which is not terribly huge, but altogether it looks good. And you do have, again, a very nice lighting signature at the rear, where you can see it's kind of like this inverted, like bracket shape almost, where it comes vertically here from lower in the fender before making its way through the entire center line, taking a break here for that part of the hatch with the rear camera, but otherwise almost being a full width tail light there and running light that looks very nice. And the badging is minimal, which I always appreciate. Your Kia badge front and center, K4, and the GT line trim notation right there. Other than the other styling elements of the trim, that's about all that gives it away that you're looking at a GT line example. But overall, I think it's a very nice shape, and again, it really pops in this color. And I did notice, interestingly, the rear doors because of where they shut them in the panel gaps, they do extend quite far out, so it can be very easy to just like nick yourself there when you're opening the door quickly from any angle. That's kind of a little bit of a downside in the execution of the rear door shape. So when you're opening, you kind of have to like watch yourself a bit there. But otherwise, you know, it looks very nice overall. And I think with that said, let's go take a look at some of the interior, because that is also a very well executed setup with some nice material mixtures. So jumping in here from the passenger side, you can see we have basically a mixture of plastics and fake, you know, leather, vinyl material, whatever they're calling it. So it's not real leather, but you have some of it here on the door panel and parts of the center console. But of course the seats, you can tell, are in this contrast color with the black over that like soft gray tone that you see some of repeated in the door panels as well. But I'm gonna jump in over here on the driver's side, and we can take a closer look at everything in here, because it is a very nice interior with a lot of features. Kia's always been big on value proposition and loading things up with as many comfort features and tech as they can. And you know, this is again overall a compact segment vehicle, so you don't expect it to be absolutely loaded with everything, but it comes damn close. I mean, you have a good mixture of hard buttons here, first of all, on your steering wheel, which itself looks nice. Again, you have the contrasting vinyl color here and stitching from the top portion and the airbag area. But you can see nice placement of the drive mode button here right in the center below the airbag. And you've got a lot of plastic, you know, where these hard buttons appear, but thankfully it's not piano black, so it's not something that's gonna get scratched up or just coated in fingerprints. And it's also like a nice soft plastic, you know, it feels nice to the touch, doesn't feel cheap and scratchy. The airbag part maybe a little bit, but again, you're only really using that to press the horn. So everything else you actually touch is very well executed, and you can see you have everything you expect. Your audio controls and Bluetooth hands-free here on the right, as well as on the left. You have your driver assist and cruise control features that you can use, as well as some of the toggles that will change what you're looking at in the center gauge screen in front of you. And let's talk about that briefly. You have this entire gauge screen that is a continuous panel that goes through everything. So you can see here, of course, your center infotainment, which is touchscreen capable, and as you can see, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wireless connectivity, and wired if you so choose. And then you have this fixed section here, which I really like. It's where you can adjust your climate controls, and you can see it has a constant readout of what you're doing. And then in the center infotainment section, as you're adjusting things with these hard buttons like the temperature, fan speed, and air direction controls, which by the way, it's dual zone, you can easily use those at any point while you're driving and see this little panel that pops up there to show you what's changing. So you can very easily manage all of this while you're driving without really taking your eyes off the road. And then again, moving into the central digital gauge display, which is very nice. It's not overly configurable, which you wouldn't really expect in this segment. You have your tach and your speedo and your center area where you can display a few different things about the vehicle settings and so forth, but very intuitive and easy to read. Beyond that, let's move back to the center console a bit. You have a pretty traditional gear shifter here with this, you know, vinyl boot for your 8-speed transmission. You have an auto hold feature, which is nice to have to just keep the car in place when you're at a stoplight without shifting into park or anything. And you've got your camera suite functions here that you can pull up as needed, push to start, and you've got a nice big area here for wireless charging, which is rubberized with these little sections here to keep your phone from sliding around. And you've got the connectivity here that you'd expect for traditional cigarette-style outlets to USB-Cs, and this one in particular you can toggle between charge and connect for wired CarPlay or just charge only. An underratedly awesome feature that they included here. And then beyond that, you have a pretty big center console with these large cup holders that you can push out to, you know, put in the little container there as needed. You've got your traditional center console and other storage areas. You do have a sunroof that you can open the visor for if you so choose. This is really the only area up here that has piano black, but it's above you, so it's not really going to collect dust and not really going to be anything you're touching much out of the few functions up there. But overall, again, a very nice mix of materials. Nothing feels too cheap. You even have a little bit of ambient lighting that comes in there. You can just barely see it during the daytime, but you can, of course, configure that in your settings above this sort of nicely patterned plastic material that spans the entire width of the dash. And again, very nice mix of hard buttons. As you can tell, you've got some hotkeys here for your infotainment, map, media, home, favorites, etc., along with this little volume slider that is a little bit more awkward to use than a traditional volume knob, but good to have it nonetheless and feels very nice. And isn't, I think it's just plastic, but gives off a nice little aluminum, like knurled look, which is always a bit premium in its appearance. And then on the driver's side, something very nice is you do have heated seats as standard, and then as part of the $2,300 additional optional package on this car, you've got cooled seats or ventilated seats, heated steering wheel with 2 levels, and 2 driver seat memory functions for the power adjustable driver's seat. So that overall is great value there. Of course, that package is optional. It comes with other things that enhance some of the ADAS functions and the sensors and other, lane keep functions and things like that you can get with this car. But it adds so much more there to your comfort and convenience, and all through hard buttons, not buried in a menu. So that's great to see. Now let's jump out of the car for a minute, and I'm going to go check out the back seat just to give you a look into how some of the material choices and comfort extend back there. So I'm just going to sit in here real quick and show you where the driver's seat is positioned right now. I'm very comfortable. I mean, I'm just under 6 feet tall, and my knees are not bumping up against it or anything. I have plenty of room to move my feet around. And yeah, it's very comfortable. I got headroom, shoulder room, hip room, everything. It's very nice to see that because, again, with these compact hatch segments, you don't always expect to have loads of room. It is a compact car after all. But it's very nice back here, and the material choices continue throughout with some of the vinyl mixed in with the contrast coloring of the plastic, soft materials, nice door handles. The only thing that maybe looks a little cheaper than you expect is the entire back of the seat is just raw plastic that is a bit harder and scratchier. So, looking at that in the rear, it doesn't look as nice as just having the full back of the seat be vinyl, of course. But you do have a pair of climate vents and a pair of USB-C charge ports, great for rear seat comfort and connectivity, of course, as well as it looks like you have a storage net just on the passenger side there. And then you've got a center armrest you can fold down with a pair of smaller cup holders for additional creature comforts. But yeah, overall, very comfortable seats. You've got a couple of water bottle storage areas tucked into the rear doors there. A little bit awkward getting out just because of where the rear wheel fender cuts into that door line, but to be expected in any hatchback, of course. And then let's talk about the hatch. Not power operated, which you wouldn't really expect in this segment, but you can pop it up easily from the rear as you saw, and it folds up, and here's your rear hatch. Little opening there for your spare tire and fix-a-flat stuff that comes with the vehicle, but otherwise what you see is what you get, nothing fancy. You got some grocery hooks, and of course you can put a privacy cover over here to conceal things when the hatch is closed, and you've got a 60-40 split on the rear seats that you can easily pop down with these manual latches on either side. So your options for 5-passenger usage or loading in longer and larger cargo is all there as you'd expect in the hatch segment. And that is a quick overview of the design and the features of the K4. So with that in mind, I'm excited to get it out on the road and see how it drives. All right, driving the 2026 Kia K4 Hatchback GT Line Turbo, a car that can trace its roots back all the way to the Kia Spectra 5 and later the Kia Forte 5, which this vehicle replaces, and continues the lineage of the compact Kia hatchback, which kind of surprising that we're even here, given that the Forte 5 was last seen in 2018 in the US model range, but they decided to bring it back, which, hey, can't complain. I love a good hatchback. So how does this thing drive? Well, it's not like a dynamic masterpiece or something exciting that I think some people out there may have been hoping when this thing first debuted with the sparkling yellow paint job and the GT line trim and the turbo in the name, that like, oh, this is going to be some spicy hatch of some sort from Kia. But no, sorry, it's not. It's a middle-of-the-road compact hatch that performs really well. It's got 2 drive modes, normal and sport. I'm in sport right now, which just sharpens up the throttle a little bit. Doesn't do anything crazy, but overall rides very nicely and performs exactly as you'd expect for a car in this segment, which is to say the driving experience is fine. Right? It goes 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds thanks to the 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that makes 190 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque, exclusively set up as a front-wheel drive vehicle and paired with the traditional 8-speed torque converter automatic. So with those specs in mind, you kind of have an idea of what this thing is going to perform like if you've been in any other competitors like the Civic Hatch, Corolla Hatch, Mazda3 Hatch, Subaru Impreza Hatch. That's really all it goes up against right now in the US market. So it's a small group, but an important segment for people that are just looking for reliable daily drivers that are simple, easy to use, and dependable. And this car definitely fits the boxes. I think anyone in the market for this car, if you get the K4 turbo hatch, you're going to be happy with its performance in 95% of its use case, if not 100% of the time, because it drives exactly like you'd expect. It's not super slow like when you get in potentially some of the lower trim versions of the K4 itself, where you get a 2-liter engine, but a 0 to 60 time of like 8 to 9 seconds because it has like just under 150 horsepower. Those are going to feel pretty slow. You're going to struggle a bit probably on merges and passes, or not struggle, but you're just going to be like, it's going to feel a little underpowered, and you're going to hear powertrain groan a lot. This car doesn't have any of those negatives because you get the higher output, of course, close to 200 horsepower. And it performs really well as a result. And the front wheel drive, you know, is not, it means you're not going to have any sort of like dynamic surprises with this car, or be seeking out, you know, a curvy canyon road to take it on or something. But the steering is good. You know, it's not overly vague or numb. It's exactly like you'd expect, and giving you in this segment, and it gives you enough confidence in the directions when you're placing the car. The brakes are good. The ride is nice and compliant. If anything, I've noticed the rear end over rough patches and expansion joints can get a little bit more wobbly than I anticipated, with a little bit more like shock through the vehicle when you hit those bad bumps and stuff. But again, also not terribly surprising for a car in this segment. It performs really well. And there's not a whole lot you can really fault it on from the driving experience, because this is the segment that it's meant to play in for people that just need an easy to drive car that they can zip around city centers and the town as their primary daily driver. And it feels really nice. You know, it's much better than, you know, years past of cars in this segment like Focus hatchbacks and other things, where they were maybe a lot slower and also a lot more cramped. This car is really roomy and nice to spend time in. You know, there's a lot, as I mentioned, a good mix of materials and other, you know, functions and features that they load into this car, even as standard. So, you know, speaking of value, of course, you do have Kia's, Honda Kia Group are known for their 10-year, 100,000-mile factory warranty, which this car continues, so that's great. They've proven to be very reliable and dependable vehicles, but of course, a big value boost to still have that warranty there if and when you need it. And then in terms of the pricing, the K4 range starts in the low to mid 20s, with the hatchback being a little bit of a premium, and of course this example being a fully optioned top spec model, because you have the GT line trim, which is at the top of the tree right now, and that turbo powertrain, and all the optional packages, which on this car, $400 for that sparkling yellow paint, which, like, please, please, please get that paint job. It's so good. We need to bring back vibrant paint colors in the compact car segment, and hopefully this is a sign of that. But yeah, definitely recommend getting that paint. A lot of people staring at it as I drive and park around for the past week, so it really pops. Anyway, beyond that, you have a $2,300 driver tech package on this particular car, which I think you should get. I mean, it just adds a number of things to the driver assistance suite package and the software. It adds the 360 camera setup that you can pull up in your central infotainment screen. It adds the power adjusted seat with the driver memory functions. It adds the heated steering wheel and the ventilated seats, of which are favorite creature comforts of mine living in the Midwest. We always have reasons to use heated or cooled functions. And I've got the ventilated seats on right now, and they're working great. They fire up instantly and make things super comfortable. So I think you should get that driver or that tech package that they offer on the K4. But that does take the price as tested for this vehicle all the way up to just under $33,000 after delivery and taxes and all that, whatever. So, you know, that's a decent chunk of money. I think, at least mentally, I feel like that's a decent chunk of money for a compact hatch segment car, but that's just where we're at. That's just where things are at today with inflation and everything. So, and they're in line with the competition. So nothing too shocking about that. With that in mind, let's talk a little bit more about the competition and why you might favor one versus another. So all of the cars in this segment, again, we're not talking about the performance ones like the GR Corolla, etc. So we're just in that, like, you know, 4-cylinder, 1.5 to 2 liter engine capacity category here. And none of them offer a manual transmission, or at least if they did, it was recently phased out in the US market. So this one benefits a little bit from having at least not a CVT. It has a traditional automatic transmission. And then the only one in the segment that offers a hybrid right now is the Civic, so points to them on that. This car and the other competitors don't have a hybrid offering. And all-wheel drive is an option on the Mazda3, but it's standard on the Subaru Impreza hatch, being, you know, so that's a big thing for Subaru. So if you're critically concerned with getting, all weather or cold weather performance out of your compact hatch, maybe you'd go for the Subaru. If you're going for efficiency, maybe you'd go for the Civic Hatch or the GR Corolla Hatch, which, while it's not a hybrid, you get up to about 35 mpg combined, which is pretty strong. That is one unfortunate downside of this car when it comes to efficiency. The combined mpg is 28, which, it's fine, but it definitely could be better. Most of the competition, as I just mentioned, are in that low to mid 30 mpg combined range. So it's interesting, from a new compact hatch segment entry like this coming out for the 2026 model year, you'd think that it would have a little bit better on the efficiency side, which, again, a lot of people might overlook that, but I mention it because if you're in the segment for this car as your only daily driver, you likely are someone who cares about efficiency as it pertains to your spend on gasoline, which is not cheap these days. So, that does matter overall depending on how much you're driving your car. But otherwise, in terms of the competition, I think this thing shines really nicely. It's ultimately the newest player in the segment, so it's going to have a lot of the newest features and latest and greatest tech and everything, and things are laid out really well. Again, it's a really nice time to spend your time driving, a really nice place to spend your time driving in here with all the different features that it's loaded up with. Everything is just normal and easy to use. I mean, there was no learning curve when I picked up this car in terms of the software, the functions, the mixture of hard buttons versus touchscreen. Everything is very easy to adopt and figure out. The steering wheel controls, thankfully, are traditional, not any weird haptic touch situation where things are all weird and you have to swipe in different directions. It's all very normal, but it feels very nice. Quality, fit and finish is good. There's a lot of plastic, no surprise. Nothing's too wild and in your face here or daring from a design perspective. But again, it's just normal, and you don't have plastic black piano colored stuff just thrown everywhere to fill the gap, which I think is a trap a lot of brands have fallen into with some of their cars to make things look a little more premium than they really are. But you don't have that problem here. There's a lot of plastic, but it's soft touch plastic. It looks nice. Fit and finish is good. There's some different finishes on components here by the steering wheel switches and rollers that are meant to look like aluminum, but they feel nice to use, and they're well weighted, and again, nothing feels too wiggly or whatever. So quality is good all around. And I think also, just in terms of being a hatchback, it does a great job. It has a good amount of storage back there. You can fold down the rear seats to maximize your cargo capacity if you don't have to put people in the rear. And that's important for this segment as well, right? If you're getting the hatch, you probably are trying to boost your practicality, which this car will do well compared to, let's say, the Civic Hatchback. It's more of a notchback design, which some people might aesthetically prefer, but it does impact your practicality, of course. And then the Mazda3 Hatchback, probably one of the better looking ones in the segment, if we're honest, but also very swoopy and curvy with its design, which impacts the cargo capacity as well as also the interior. I've been in those many times, and they feel a lot more cramped because they just kind of are. This car is very roomy, and it also just provides a really good level of visibility. You have Hyundai Kia's very practical, ever prominent feature that I love in the digital gauge cluster, where they pop up your blind spot camera from the wing mirrors briefly on the left or the right side gauge when you have the signal on, so that you can clearly see your blind spots, and it works really well. Sounds kind of weird if you've never used it before, but once you have, you can't go back. It really means you don't have to look over your shoulder at all. It gives you a clear view of your blind spot without really taking your eyes off the road. So that's great. A lot of good, thoughtful features like that in the K4 hatch. So in terms of, negatives, just to kind of get into what you might need to worry about with this car, there really isn't a whole lot. I mean, again, the interior is not it's really just subjective stuff. I think this car looks better than the competition, and I think the interior is great and does its job well. It's not anything super exciting. If you're looking for that, this isn't the segment that's going to deliver something like that, but it's good. It looks like a modern car that hasn't been compromised on too much or overly decontented. Again, even if you don't get that tech package, you're only missing a few buttons here for the memory and the heated steering wheel and ventilated seats, so you still get a ton of stuff. You get radar cruise and that whole ADAS suite as standard, even without the tech package, so that's great. Adding the tech package just adds a bunch of other different sensors and emergency braking scenarios and stuff like that can help keep you safe and secure. So again, I recommend it, but even without it, you're sitting good. And part of that ADAS is the lane keep, lane keep assist and lane center assist that are both together as standard, and that is like meh. Like application of that is okay. It's a little ping-pongy. There's definitely cases when I was using it on the highway where you just kind of feel it gradually goes to the right, gradually goes to the left, back and forth over and over again. It's not as aggressive of some of the like earlier adaptations of that feature where you truly are kind of like noticeably ping-ponging between lanes. So it's not that bad, but like, could it be better? Sure. Otherwise, radar cruise and the following distance, settings and everything like that in my use have been great. It also will change lanes for you too as part of that package. I think it's only on like actual highways, at least in my use. That's been the only place where it works, but it handles the lane change as well. As long as it's clear, it'll do it for you and just center you back in your new lane. So it makes long distance cruising and road trips in this car very easy and stress-free. So that's great. But what else? Yeah, I mean, other negatives, there's really not a whole lot with the driving experience. Like I said, the rear end suspension, a little bit more unsettled than I expect in some rough pavement scenarios, but otherwise you're not going to notice it. It drives totally fine. The suspension setup is good. You don't get a lot of tire noise and wind noise, even at higher speeds. Powertrain noise, you really only hear that bleeding into the cabin if you're truly flooring it off the line, which, again, to be expected in a car like this where you're pushing a small displacement engine to the max of its rev range. And I'm sure, in those scenarios, you're going to feel some turbo lag as you really get into the full power band. But who really cares in a car like this, right? It's not like overly offensive where it's going to actually impede your driving experience and feel annoying day to day. And then price point, again, at almost $33K, it's in line with competition. But if you want to save a little bit on that, you can save the tech package and stuff like that, or get the lower output trim that we're not focusing on here, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would go for the GT Line Turbo like we're in now, and it will be a great performer for the majority of your use cases in this segment, and I think you'll be very happy with it. So would I get this if I was in the market for a compact economy hatchback? Absolutely. I think the close second for me is the Civic Hatchback. Don't love the look of it personally from certain angles, but overall that's a really compelling product. It's got a lot of good quality materials and design choices inside, especially. It looks way more premium than it previously did. So I think that's a really good offering. Maybe if you care less about the practicality, because again, the hatchback doesn't add a whole lot to that car compared to the Civic sedan. So for that reason, I like personally the look of just a boxy hatchback, more like the K4. So I would pick it for aesthetic reasons, but also just practicality benefits from being able to store longer items, taller items, etc. in the back. And again, it's also very roomy. Some of those other hatchbacks, especially like the Mazda3, which is great looking, it's very cramped. This car, in and like both rows, very roomy. From where I'm sitting, even in back, 3 people could sit comfortably without their knees bunching up against the seat. And with this being front wheel drive, there's no big offensive center tunnel back there to rob the legroom of that third passenger if you happen to have one. So I think, yeah, I would go with this. And then what do we have left? The Corolla hatch and the Impreza hatch. The Corolla especially is getting really long in that generation, and I've never really liked Subaru interiors too much. Both those cars feel very like rental car pedestrian to me in terms of their material choices and design on the interior. It's just like more like, I don't know, it feels more cheapened out and boring than I'd like in this segment. The Kia gives you just the right mix, I think, when you're in here, with things looking and feeling nice, but also just operating normally, easy to adopt, solid functionality, solid connectivity and tech, and wireless and wired Apple CarPlay, all the creature comforts, dual zone climate control, good mix of hard buttons and everything throughout that you can pair well with the touchscreen and not have to look away from your driving too much, steering wheel controls, normal steering wheel stalks for your wipers and lights and everything, and good storage with the center console and the glove box, of course, in addition to the hatch itself. So yeah, it's a really strong player. I would definitely get it. I've been seeing these around, not the hatch so much because it just debuted, but I've been seeing the sedans around a lot, and I think Kia have been selling already close to like 140,000 K4s a year, which is a slight bump over how many Fortes they were selling a year previously. Unfortunately, they don't split out the sedan and hatch numbers directly, so we won't exactly know how well it's selling compared to the sedan or the previous Forte 5 that was discontinued due to poor sales. So hopefully the same trend does not repeat itself with the K4 hatch, because I do think it's a great car. It looks great, it performs well, you can get it in a nice spec that looks a little bit more distinct on the outside from other hatchbacks running around. So I think you should totally consider it if you're in the market for one. And with that said, I think that'll wrap up this review of the 2026 K4 GT Line Turbo Hatchback. So thank you to Kia for giving me this car for the week to drive. It's been a great experience, and I hope you all enjoyed this review into this new car. Definitely like and subscribe for more content and reviews coming soon to the channel, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.